Quite the background you have today, Bob. Bob, I will be right back.
Hello, Bob. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
John, you look great from that angle.
Let me see if I can figure out a better angle.
An imposing presence.
I'm on vacation, so I'm not using my computer. I'm trying it using the telephone.
Oh, cool. Should work out. Plus, I think this meeting should be pretty brief.
It seems that way. Yeah, there's only one appeal, right?
Right.
Yeah. How you been?
Pretty good. It's enjoying life. I think that once the nice weather changes in terms of my workouts, especially pickleball and golf, I don't know. I'm not that creative. I can't figure out what I'm going to do with myself if when we can't go outside.
You mean
I don't want to feel like I'm back at March. You know,
yes.
the Y just put something out today, and it's the beginning, but they haven't announced what they're going to do with the gyms yet.
Yeah, and I understand that you have to wear a mask all the time, regardless of what you're doing.
That'll be tricky.
Yeah, that's going to have an impact, I believe.
I think so too.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting. And if they were even going to try to play pickleball, if you've got 3 courts, I could see them having the middle one empty and just playing on either side if they're worried about stuff.
Yep.
Which really doesn't allow for too many people to partake. And for the people that I'm familiar with playing pickleball, a lot of them are snowbirds. They're not even sure about going when they go to Florida, if they're even going, because by all accounts, Florida is there are more problems down there with the virus than there are
Yeah,
here.
you know, I got a buddy that's here from there also, and he tells me that it's worse than here, but not so bad.
Okay.
That's kind of the feedback I'm getting.
And it's such a big state that it could be a lot different someplace on the West Coast than the East Coast, or Miami versus Orlando or something too.
I'm sure it's probably very similar to here where, it was more prevalent downstate than it has been upstate. I'm sure it's probably similar to that there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We keep learning new stuff all the time about this virus. I mean, I'm figuring about a month from now, they'll tell us that if you smoke unfiltered Camels, that you're immune. I mean, I mean, you name it. I've seen it up till now.
It's pretty crazy.
It really is.
What I feel the worst about is the fact that it's been so politicized.
Absolutely.
The people we put our faith and our trust in to protect us and look out for us from a government standpoint they're just using this as for politics instead of.
You're right. It should have never been partisan to start
Yes.
with. And then you need to have everybody on the same page, because the calls that people are going to be getting at the Y in public schools or any other place has to do with public confidence. And right now it's not good because of all the mixed messages.
Yep. And you got different schools treating it differently.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some school districts are going back full time. Others, like Canandaigua, 2 days a week, and then the other days virtually. It's just inconsistent, and like you just said, people's confidence is at an all-time low.
Absolutely. My take would be if they really are gonna transform some of these buildings for a new kind of instruction, they're gonna need some money. But I would delay the opening. Watch the mistakes that other states make, and by delaying the opening, then I would compress the vacations later in the year, so the kids would still be in attendance the same amount of time roughly, but make sure that you've got all your ducks in order. And right now they don't. We don't even know, coming back from the quarantine, if you have to be checked through the health department or the school itself. There are all these questions. And how many people quarantine? If this kid is one kid in a class or in a large group, there's so much confusion in my mind. I know that they kind of spell it out, on a boilerplate from a lot of these districts, but that's not going to stand up to the scrutiny of parents that are demanding.
Yes. Yeah. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah. But you know how it goes? Like I used to say, I never made a bad decision if I had when I based it on the facts I knew at the time. But if I had put the decision off for a week or two, who knows, I would have made a different decision with more information in front of me. I don't think right now they really know enough to be able to get on top of this. And that's why I would push for a delay, but also not give kids or teachers extra time off later in the year.
Well, in our geographic area, I hate to say this, but it's basically eradicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are some isolated cases that pop up. I mean, we just had one in Canandaigua where the 3 kids from Tim Hortons, but who knows whether they were asymptomatic and they just tested positive because, they had to be tested by the store. We didn't get that level of information. And I think that level of information is good. So, and how many cases where people are getting it now, they're asymptomatic.
Right.
We don't know.
And if they test enough, and if they come up with a cheap test, which would be great, this contact tracing could be very valuable, I think. And if you look at the dynamics of Canandaigua, what makes us different? You've got the lake crowd that comes in from out of town, and you've got the kids going to the community college that are coming in from out of town, and that creates a dynamic that's a little different than some other little sleepy towns or villages in the area.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes up.
Absolutely. But you're right about the partisan stuff. My goodness, I don't know how we ever got to that point. And politically, this was a chance for the guys up on top to pull everybody together and make us feel like we were on one team. And they blew the opportunity. And I don't know why. To me, that would have made sense. That would have been the good politics.
Well, I think it's just the country right now is just too divided.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've lost our sense of humor about, the silliness about it all and all that. It's people are too edgy. And,
You're not allowed to have a sense of humor anymore.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hey,
Chip.
Chip, how are you?
Am I at the right meeting here?
Yeah, you are. I was on my high horse.
Okay.
Chip, your resolution on your camera is great.
Is it
That's a
really?
really good shot.
It's an old computer.
Wow.
Yeah. That's because I don't have a city behind me, I think, probably.
Yeah, you're right. I'm starved for attention. I want somebody to say, geez, that's a great whatever. Nobody ever says anything. It's, so it goes. But it's, I think people got tired of looking at the books on my shelf behind me. So I went with something different.
How do you get that behind you, Bob?
You go to, at least on the desktop, where it says stop video, you can go to it, it says choose virtual background.
Okay.
And when you do that, you can get any pictures that are in your computer and load them on.
Okay.
We'll see where you're from next time.
Yeah. So we're just about 6 o'clock. We're pretty close.
Terrence is here.
Yeah.
He's muted.
Yeah, I got 1 minute. I got 5:59. And now I have 6 o'clock.
Terrific.
Let's get
Have
started. Welcome everyone to the August hearings of the Town of Canandaigua Zoning Board of Appeals. It's our custom to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, after which we will have a brief moment of silence in honor of our servicemen and women. So if you would please join with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll begin tonight with a new public hearing. This is for property at 2834 County Road 10. The applicant is seeking a 2,600 square foot accessory building footprint area variance. So, Michael?
Okay, go ahead. Okay, yes.
If you would please go ahead.
I'm trying to get a variance for a tractor shed to get my stuff undercover, neaten up the yard, and reorganize. Me and my son's into the hobby, and we have quite a bit of stuff, and we're trying to get it organized, and actually we're trying to cut back also, but I'd like to have this building to neaten things up and get everything undercover.
Okay. So last month when we had you here with us, just give us a recap of that application. I could use the recap myself.
Well, it's 15 feet off the back boundary. Is that what you mean? We thought we were gonna talk about that, but this was the issue here.
So Eric, then last month, we approved the setback, but not the size.
No, what happened was, maybe it's better for me to walk through this then. So this is kind of the existing conditions right now. This was a survey done, last year.
Yeah.
There's various sheds on the property, an existing barn, there's also some trailer boxes. What he's proposing is to remove, one or two sheds, I can't recall, but, remove some of them and put the new, I can't remember what you just called it, the trailer shed anyways, back here.
Tractor barn.
15 feet off the property. Because there's pre-existing non-conforming conditions, which he is improving upon, he does not need a setback variance for that. However, town code requires that, or dictates that you can't go over 3,000 square feet of accessory building. What the applicant is proposing is beyond that limit, and that is why the variance is needed. So it should be covered in this. 3,000 is I guess the absolute maximum. There's also a formula. It's 1,300 square feet plus 1% of the subject lot, so that's where the 1,800 comes from. And then, he's proposing 4,400 when that's allowed.
So what did we do with this last month?
It was noticed improperly as a
Oh, that's
setback.
right. Okay. I was trying to remember and think, what is the difference? It was the notice issue. I remember. Okay. So we've heard about this project, I think, in detail, but what questions do the members of the board have about the application?
Which other sheds are gonna be taken down?
I have a old tractor trailer in the very back corner that I'm planning on removing. And I have another 20-foot shed that I plan on removing probably next summer. I'm just gonna be running out of time this year.
So the trailer and is it the 12 by 20 or the 13 by 20?
Actually, there's a 40-footer in the very back corner. I already cut 10 feet off of it and we're gonna remove the rest of it. But it's probably not gonna happen till next summer after it dries up. And there's one other one, a 28 by 20, that I think I'm gonna remove that one also.
So this is the one. This is what was proposed to us, anyways.
That's the new proposal.
Yep.
That doesn't have the storage boxes on it. This has the buildings on it of the house and the main garage and the outbuildings. The storage,
I'm sorry. I think I asked this last time. What's the current square footage of accessories?
I don't know that offhand. Maybe Eric does.
3884.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
I guess from my point of view, I'd be interested in your overall plan, where you expect to be with your coverage a year from now and even down the road, because it seems like this kind of fits into, if I heard what you were saying, into your long-range plan.
Yes, we've been working at it, me and my son, all summer since it dried up. And we're trying to get the south side of the yard of the buildings empty. And this building will help me greatly to get the tractors in there and getting things organized so I can get everything else off the yard, actually, is what I'm trying to do. Then the storage containers, there's stuff in them, but I need time to get a new home for them so I can take a couple of them down. And it will be in the next summer also. I have talked to the neighbor on the south side of me, RS Motorsports, and he has no problem with what I'm doing. And I talked to the neighbor across the street that has a bird's eye view of my side yard, and he's good with what I'm doing. I told them both what I planned on doing.
And of course, everybody received notice of the application and whatnot, and we didn't receive any comments back.
Now, referencing this, can you explain what we're looking at, where the changes will take place?
Under the, I don't know how to do this, but
Can you see it in mass? No.
Right where Eric has his cursor, there will be a long building running north-south.
that has been moved up by the house garage, and that little building has been removed off the property. And I have another building that we removed off the property also, right there. You can barely see it between the trees. And go to that. Oh,
And then the new building.
the new building will be right there. I do have it all cleaned off right now. Yeah.
So Eric, the new building, sorry, this is his daughter, will actually be, if you move the
Go
pointer
north
up,
a little.
so past that second tree. So you
That
see
tree's
the
gone.
roof.
That tree is gone.
Yep, so it'll all be hidden behind this back garage area, the
Yep.
tractor shed.
There'll be 40 foot behind the building and 20 foot on the south side. The front would be exposed.
Cool.
And that trailer in the very back corner will be removed next summer. That one, yes. So it's taken a while. It's slow, but we're getting there. I've been on this property my whole life, 60 years. And me and my son are both into car collection and tractors. And we just need some more space.
All right, we have any other questions from the board?
The big barn for storage as well? It's already there?
The big, that's my main shop.
Okay.
And my son's gonna live in the top half of it, where they were raised. But the bottom is all shop.
Are there any other properties along the road, that road there, that are similar, that's ever been granted a variance for that much square footage for accessory structures? Or I know that it's pretty industrious, or what, not, I mean, it's kind of a mixed use.
Yeah. So it's in the industrial zoning district, and so it's kind of all non-conforming there. And of course, half the road is in Hopewell, so we have no real jurisdiction over them.
Okay.
There's only a few residential properties on the street. There's this one up there, which does not have anything similar to this. There's the house next to Rossi Music, which really doesn't have any land. That's kind of pretty much it. Of course, there's this one down there, but not to my knowledge anyways, I would say.
Okay.
At least for non-conforming residential.
Right. So the other half of the road is Hopewell.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And I used to be zoned commercial residential, and now I understand it's industrial residential.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
So 4,400 is the, what you're requesting now, and next year when you're removing stuff is gonna be less than that? Is that my understanding?
Yeah, we're gonna remove some storage units, yes.
Okay, so what would it, do you have an approximation of what it would be down to, or is that the 4,400 number?
Off the top of my head, I don't know that answer.
I think that it's still the 4,400 number. The
Okay.
the sketch that was provided to me shows the new shed. Two of those sheds that you mentioned, Mike, removed, the smaller one
Right.
behind the house, one up by the western property line. And then, you know, that one shed to remain kind of on the southern line.
Yes, that's,
The trailers were never included in the coverage, so removing them doesn't make an impact on that total amount.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, do we have any questions or comments on this application from anyone in the audience? No? Okay.
There's Mr. Peck. Are you here for this application?
You're on mute, Scott.
I'm just listening in. It's my family's property, and my parents live just to the north of the property on the Hopewell side. So just watching with interest.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions from the board, which certainly we can do, if there are any. Is the applicant, Mike, are you comfortable closing your application?
yes, I don't know what else to say. I'm good.
Okay. Going one last time to the board, anything before we close? No? Okay. Well, with that, we will close and move into our deliberations. Just so those who are watching tonight understand, when we move into the deliberations, it's no longer part of a public hearing where, you know, the applicant and members of the audience can give input and comment and information. It's still open to the public, but the deliberations are the private deliberations of the board. So, members of the board, what do you think about this application?
I don't know. I mean, you guys have seen that road. I mean, it's kind of a,
Yep.
you know, it's a mix of everything, right? So I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, it's not like he's impeding on anybody's view or anything. If you ever seen the property, you know, nobody lives behind him. So I don't know. I mean, anybody have any more valid points that?
Well, I have a question. If it was approved, could we write in the conditions that this is with the understanding that in a year's time, that some of the excess, the clutter will be removed? Because I think, you know, I think that's what Mike indicated anyway, was going to be happening next summer. I guess I'm asking this to Terrence. Is that something we could do as a condition?
Yeah, we can put any reasonably related condition on the approval. You know, my own personal feeling on this one is that anywhere else, I'd almost assuredly be a no vote on this quantity of accessory structure square footage. But I think that this parcel is exceedingly unique based upon where it's at and what's around it. And I think that this would improve the property. But, you know, in terms of conditions, to your question, you know, Bob, I'm of the mindset almost that I would want to have a discussion with the board about conditioning the issuance of building permits upon, you know, their removal of these other, I think there's at least one accessory structure, right, Eric, that still has to be removed?
Sorry, I was muted there for a second. Yeah, I believe that's correct.
So my thought is, we have a plan that shows that accessory structure being gone. We could approve a variance tonight, but I wouldn't be comfortable having any construction start until the site matches the plan, basically, that structure is removed. Because I wouldn't want to get into a situation where the structure is not removed and we condition it on the plan, and then the new building's built, and then that structure is still there, and then it becomes an enforcement issue for the town.
Can I suggest that we do it on certificate of compliance? I can't speak for Mike, obviously, but sometimes people, will build a building and then move stuff into it. I'm not sure that there's anything in that shed or in the things to be removed that would then make it into the new building. The certificate of compliance is, of course, probably still enough leverage before to ensure compliance.
I think that would be reasonable from my side of it.
But were there other conditions you were contemplating, Bob?
I'm like to work with the homeowner. It sounds like he has a plan for reform where he can take care of his needs, but also make the property more visually more acceptable. And I'm just, that's sort of the way I'm feeling. I'm not a yes or no vote, but I'm sensed from what he said that he is he's flexible and willing to show good faith in that way. At least that's the way I read it.
Yep. And you're saying a condition that would require the removal of personal property,
Like
cars,
trailers.
tractors, and putting them indoors.
That would be acceptable.
Yeah.
We don't, typically we're pretty conservative when we grant any of these things, obviously. Just like you said, Terrence, this is exceptionally unique in the sense that it's not necessarily uncharacteristic with the neighborhood, to have more than, a few accessory structures. But to Bob's point, just like the CYA rule, right? Make sure that he's able to do as he says within a feasible time is that's the only thing I have to add on it. So.
I agree with Terrence. The conditioning thing is kind of important as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise, who knows what happens? It's great to have great intentions, but I think it's a great idea to have this condition one way or another.
And just thinking through the condition issue, not that we can't. I think our goal is always to try to put conditions on that don't create too much enforcement issue for the town. I do have a little bit of worry if we put conditions, for example, you can't have, let's say, more than, 3 automobiles on the property that are outside of the accessory structures at any given time or something like that. How does the town enforce that? And
Enforcing those rules can be pretty complicated for the junk vehicles and whatnot. And Mr. Chappell, I know, has many out there, and he has for a number of years.
yeah. That's why I think it's generally easier for the code enforcement folks if we put things, like when we say, well, there's got to be this sort of drainage system or a berm or some landscaping has to be put in place or something, that's kind of done and then it's there and it's not a constant monitoring and surveillance to make sure that the property is still in compliance.
Terrence, do you want to, I know that you said you want to kind of check to see what type of conditioning we can do. I think we're all in agreement for the most part that, you know, this isn't like, that it's not too out of the ordinary of a request, but for that area. But to cover, you know, make sure we're doing the proper thing. We don't want to just say, slap something on there. Do you want to give it are we able to like consult with an attorney and get back to him? Or, I mean, how, we wouldn't have to push to the next meeting, right? I mean, I think we've done this in the past, right? Where we sort of had an agreement. I don't know. I mean, what's your thought process on that?
You know, we can always, you know, delay a vote to get advice from Chris, for example, if we wanted to ask our attorney for advice on a specific condition we were contemplating. Our vote does have to be in a public meeting, so we couldn't, you know, say, well, we're going to end the meeting tonight, shoot out an email to Chris and have him propose some stuff that we're comfortable with and then vote. I mean, we could vote tonight on the approval. I'm trying to remember the rule, Eric. It's that our decision sheet has to be signed 5 days. It's from the vote, right? Not from whenever we get around to drafting the decision, correct?
Yeah, I believe it has to be filed within 5 days.
Yeah. So, and the vote has to be done in a public meeting.
Okay. Well, I don't want to delay him. You know, I mean, I don't want to push it out another. I mean, it was our error the first time. So what do you, can we vote and then get something, consult with Chris within that 5 days or?
I mean,
Would,
for me, I think the condition.
would there be value in opening it back up and letting Michael react to our conversation and see if he's on board with being flexible, and would there be value in that?
I'm always happy to reopen when a board member wants more information. I never have
Okay.
a concern with that.
Okay.
Got to make a motion though, right? Or no?
Yeah, I'd make that motion then.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All right, so Bob, you want to pose your question to Mike and see what he
Sure.
thinks?
Yes. Mike, we're entertaining the possibility of granting this variance, and we, at least speaking for myself, are interested in your long-term goals for what you want to do. But along the way, we'd be concerned about reducing the your covered square footage, and perhaps disposing of some of your storage areas, you know, et cetera, storage, whatever. And you had mentioned that in conversation, but I wanted to be more specific and to see how you feel about that.
That's my goal. This is the reason for the building, is to clean up the yard. And me and my son's been working at it, like I said, since it dried up this summer. But there's some trailers out there with material on for the building. And I need the building that's going to eliminate a lot of that stuff. And it's going to put all the tractors inside and a couple of trucks that I really don't want outside. That are in the storage unit and a couple that are outside. That's my goal, is to clean up the backyard. And we are getting rid of some cars. We're cutting down on cars, which he sold one tonight. So we are cleaning up, and I'm a man of my word. If we agree to it, I'll do it.
Okay. That was actually what I was going to say. I mean, we want to take you for your word. We're just trying to make sure, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, we're a board of, you know, regular residents that, you know, we get promises all the time, but we want to make sure that
But
we're not creating an enforcement issue for the town. We want, there's some protocol that we have to follow to make sure. you know,
One
we're
thing,
not-
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, go ahead.
This is our hobby. This is mine and my son's hobby. That's all we do. We don't do nothing else, really. We build cars and we play with old tractors and I'm getting close to retirement and I'm re-looking at what some of the stuff I saved. I don't really see me using it, so I'm starting to get rid of a bunch of stuff. But we do this all the time, build cars in the main shop. And this stuff is, some of them are projects that are waiting and stuff that, like I said, the other stuff we're gonna get rid of. But if we agree to it, I will take care of it.
So I put a draft condition up here. Is that enough to satisfy what you guys are seeking? That's kind of what I said before. And Bob, when you guys approve this variance, or if you do at 4,400 square feet, that would allow Mr. Chappell to maintain those 2 sheds as shown on the sketch plan, and then obviously to construct the new one. The accessory building footprint doesn't take into account, though, trailers, because they're not considered buildings, they're vehicles. Same with cars and stuff like that. So is your condition about removing buildings on the lot, or is it vehicles?
Me personally, I was more concerned about what was being used as storage, but it was still, the trailers. I was thinking about it. I understand if you're working with cars or on cars and that's part of your hobby, I differentiate that from a trailer that's out there for storage. The way based on our conversation.
I think just to shed some clarity on that, those storage units have been there, at least for 30 years. I'm 30 and grew up there. And the vehicles that my father had when he was, 18 years old are still in those storage units. So I think that's where he's making the correlation to his hobbies and stuff, because there's classic cars in those units from his teenage years that have been sitting there for that long of a period of time. So having this extra accessory structure to keep those vehicles under cover that he's had for, the past 50 years is, I guess, where sentimentally he wants to make sure that they're protected and, also be in compliance with what you guys are looking for him to do.
Looking at number 3 works for me.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. Perfect. I don't have any other questions, Terrence, so.
Bob, do you have anything else for the applicant?
As long as Mike understands what 3 means, I'd be fine with it.
Can you explain it quick? The certificate of compliance, is that pre-construction or post?
Post. You'd get your building approval to start building, and then when construction's done, it's got to be inspected to make sure that it was done appropriately. And maybe Eric, you want to speak up, but that's the certificate of compliance when it's built.
When the code enforcement officer goes out to inspect it to say that it meets New York State building code standards, you get a certificate, piece of paper, at the end saying this was built into compliance in New York State building code. What the condition would do is they wouldn't release that certificate to you until, the other accessory buildings are removed from the lot.
So I'll be able to build a new building, then remove the old stuff. And
Yep.
That's fine.
Is there a expiration date on either the variance or the permit it. I'm just thinking, with winter and spring coming, depending on weather and how wet that part of the property is, and will he have like a year or so to complete all of?
So the condition that the zoning board normally puts on is that a permit would have to be issued within 1 year. When a permit is issued, you will have 6 months to start construction. When you start construction within 6 months, that permit then goes for a year. So theoretically, you could have up to 2 years to construct the building. And also, once a permit's issued, you can get an extension beyond that. So generally 2 years.
That's good.
Okay, and keep in mind too, I mean, just because we say we're gonna, you'd have to have them after the building, you can remove the stuff prior to any type of construction. I mean, so you don't have to do it all at once. You know what I mean? Like the way they said, as long as you removed all the other items per the plan, that the sketch that you had submitted. I mean, obviously you can still do what you plan to do. It doesn't mean that you have to do it after everything. You can, plan ahead so you're not inundated all at the same time. Right?
Okay.
Makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Why don't we close and go back into our deliberations at this point? Anyone feel like they need more discussion before we call a vote?
Nope.
All right. Eric, if you would call the vote, please.
Sure. For Mike Chappell at 2834 County Road 10, the applicant is requesting an area variance for 4,400 square feet of accessory building when 1,800 square feet is the maximum allowable. Shall the applicant be granted a 2,600 square foot area variance for accessory building footprint? Bob?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Dip?
Yes.
And Terrence?
Yes. So the board's decision is based on the descriptions and drawings provided at the public hearing, and will include both dates, Eric, last month and this month, as well as the written materials submitted on the dates that will be provided by the development office. And the board has determined that the benefit to the applicant does outweigh the detriment to the neighborhood or the community, and therefore the variance is granted. Granting this variance is in keeping with the unique character of this neighborhood. The neighborhood is dominated by the Ontario County Fairgrounds and other commercial and industrial uses. The property is one of the limited few residential parcels on the street, and has had a commercial look and feel. The neighborhood has had a commercial look and feel for an extended period of time. Granting the variance will not have an adverse effect on the property or the neighborhood for the reasons stated. I think that's probably good enough for findings of fact, unless anyone else has any findings of fact they'd like to add before we go to conditions. Okay. Maybe just one more, Eric. We can say that the board has also determined that by granting this variance, it will reduce the number of accessory structures and personal property on the parcel that's not within an accessory structure, which will improve the overall appearance of the neighborhood, and that the board has it will impose the following 3 conditions. The first is that the variance granted is specific to the most recent plan submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Any change in the plan shall validate the variance. The variance is conditioned on building permits being issued within 1 year. Failure to obtain building permits within 1 year shall invalidate the variance. And then finally, the proposed condition that certificate of compliance shall not be issued until the proposed removal of the accessory buildings as shown on the sketch plan is completed. All right. Thank you, Mike. Hope you have a good evening.
Thank you.
Don't say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in terms of other board business, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the July 2020 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, the minutes are approved. Other board business. Eric, do you want to address these proposals from the board, the town board?
Sure. Briefly on that resolution that I believe was sent to you guys, the town board, or let me start earlier. New York State passed a law saying that essentially due to COVID, local town officials and boards can extend approvals an extra 120 days. The town board took that action at their July meeting to extend the approvals of the zoning board, essentially 120 days, along with the planning board. We just wanted to make you aware of that. For the ordinance committee, we have been working diligently on a number of things, at least one of them that was at the request of the zoning board, but we'll start with the minimum off-street parking stuff. Let's see. So essentially, I have this memo, which I always prepare for the larger revisions, that goes into why we're doing this. The short version is that it's very expensive and costly to require so much parking. It's outdated largely, and our requirements are they're excessive. There are the environmental impacts of requiring too much parking, and the town, in seeking in its goals to be multimodal and walkable and all that good stuff, the regulations that we have in place today run counter to those. So to come into better conformance with the goals that the town has set forth, we have this suggested revision. I, again, won't go through every change. The big thing is that the schedule that we have now that says, X number of spaces per Y square feet of the various uses would be deleted, and the planning board, based on essentially a study by whatever the applicant is, assuming they meet certain thresholds, would provide a market demand for how much parking is necessary. That way, each applicant essentially provides as much parking as they feel is necessary without providing the excessive spaces that town code might require today. If for whatever reason they want to provide more than might be required and the market might demand, they are more than welcome to do it. Just as in today, they can provide more than we require. That is really the big thing. There are other changes in here, like changing the required size of spaces, because they're, again, pretty excessive right now. Allowing a different design of spaces, where right now they're pretty much only like the 90-degree head-in. The handicap parking, there is today a limit on the number of handicap parking spaces, which is probably not legal. It would run counter to ADA standards. We're removing that maximum so that essentially more handicap parking would be provided. And then also promoting shared parking lots, which just improves the efficiency of parking. Those are the big things, and I'm happy to take any comments if you guys have any.
Sounds reasonable.
I think you're muted, Terrence.
Yeah, thanks. The part about letting folks kind of determine their own number of parking spaces they feel like they need, am I understanding that correctly?
essentially. So this is the section that would say that. The applicant shall calculate the demand based on accepted standards such as ITE. And then there's the thresholds that would require it: new construction in excess of 5,000, renovation 50,000 or more, or upon the request of the planning board.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, that one makes me pause. I mean, I'd be more comfortable if the town had, you know, some sort of minimum number the town has determined is like the absolute bare minimum. And then they can go above that to the degree that they feel is necessary, but I'm nervous about not having any floor, any minimum.
Do you think that applicants wouldn't provide parking, or you're just not enough?
Oh, I think it could come a couple different ways. I think there are some applicants where maybe they might have a tighter parcel. For example, I'm thinking of the one that's over by Tim Hortons, or not Tim Hortons, excuse me, Tom Walls. And there's been projects that have kind of come in and out over the years. Nothing that's ever been built there though. But I remember we saw one at one point, Chip, I think.
The AFC or something like that?
Yeah, that I remember at that point in time, I thought, man, they're trying to cram a lot into a little spot. So I could see somebody maybe trying to do something where they don't have a lot of other options. Or, you know, just people are grossly underestimating what they're going to need and not doing it. That's the parcel right there, that triangle one.
Yeah.
They're trying to scam anybody or anything, but just they're underestimating what they need.
Mhm.
But I'm not a planner.
Well, I can remember the discussion, Terrence, and the funny thing is we were concerned about overestimating. And we see with the plazas, all of this immense blacktop with no cars, you know, and that's what we have. So we have the two extremes based on what's going on the parcel going on. But we were, I remember in discussion reacting to, wow, so much parking area for these plazas, and that's all they are is spaces. You don't see that many cars.
Yep.
That is, I mean, that's kind of the meat of what we're getting at. Right now, we require too much.
Yep.
You either kind of require too much or too little whenever you have a standard like this. You know, is there more harm in requiring too few or requiring too many? So cars requiring too few, which I believe is kind of Terrence's contention right now. If an applicant, you know, wants more spaces or believes that it adds value to his business, brings in more customers, he's of course allowed to do that. However, if we are making him waste money on spaces that add no value to his business, they would either avoid the town of Canandaigua in general or spend money that returns them nothing. Plus the various
Got to
other-
be some sort of formula for that, right? I mean, don't they? Because I mean, what about how do other towns do it? You know?
Well, the ITE, and this is, if we were to have a minimum, it would probably derive from the ITE anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But the ITE has, let's say, various land use types that is kind of like the initial consideration. Are you in a rural area? Are you in a suburban area, an urban area, or transitional areas in between them? And then breaks it down like our existing off-street parking requirements. Excuse me, that's the wrong one. There's maybe 20 or 30 uses or something like that. The existing and current ITE one has something like 132 separate uses or whatever. So it provides a lot more specificity, to go by their standard than by kind of trying to make our own.
So I clearly understand the logic and reasoning for all these different sides of this issue. And I think there's logical arguments on all sides. I'm just saying that my personal view is I would have some minimum. Maybe you say, the developer can choose however many parking spaces they want, but in no event shall it be less than, half of what's required by the, the IP you just said?
ITE.
Yeah, or, less than 3/4 of what's, suggested by the IP.
Well, in this instance, the ITE standards is kind of what we're requiring.
Okay.
So
You were trying to add something above and beyond that? Is that my understanding?
And what you're saying is based upon accepted standards, and then you give that as an option, right?
that's correct.
Yeah. So I'm saying the accepted standard could be, I think, subject to interpretation, but I don't know if we really need to beat it to death, this issue. That's just, if I'm giving feedback, that's my feedback. I would have some sort of minimum number.
Okay.
What else in there, Eric?
I mean, that's the big one. There's a lot of smaller things, I guess, but that's kind of the big change.
Yeah, I guess, I'm saying in there in this section from ordinance committee, we've got manufactured homes, RLD.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. All right. So what do we got? Manufactured homes. So this one came about as a conversation with Chris Jensen and somebody from AGL Homes, who produces and installs manufactured homes. Essentially, AGL said our existing code is illegal because we regulate manufactured homes to a higher standard than HUD, which is not allowed. And so while the town can regulate aesthetic standards for housing, it can't regulate construction standards for manufactured housing. So this proposed...
Well, manufactured homes as in some of them are like 2-story, or we talk about all manufactured homes, I guess?
It's kind of I think that's a modular home that you're
Yeah,
talking about.
modular, isn't that's considered manufactured too, isn't it, or no?
There's a specific definition that HUD provides for what is a manufactured home. I don't think that generally a modular home is also a manufactured home. Maybe in some instances it is. But I think if you're trying to conceptualize what this is, generally it refers to like a double wide or what you might consider a mobile home.
Okay.
Well, it becomes all inclusive because, everything that's going up here in Auburn Hills here is a manufactured home. They're built up on Hook Road and they're assembled in wherever they is, but they're not a double wide. These are a manufactured home, but they're not anything like what I used to think of as a double wide.
Yeah. Maybe I can add some clarity by going to the town's definition. Sorry.
Hey, Dave, is it raining over by you?
Yes.
Is it? Oh, I was gonna go grill my dinner tonight. I can see it coming. What was that, Chip? You got your mute.
Don't go over to his house and grill it.
Yeah, right. Well, it's coming my way. I knew he'd get it first.
Anyways, I don't think that those modular homes are considered manufactured, but if you want, I can get clarity from Chris Jensen. He's more the expert on this than I am. Do you guys have any other comments on this one?
No, I don't.
It's probably important to note that the county planning board suggested eliminating this section as well. That right now manufactured homes are allowed in all districts except the RLD, but that may also be illegal and
Okay.
exclusionary.
Huh. I don't
That's
know.
interesting. I was criticized for raising that as an issue.
You were criticized because you were asking why they are?
And
Or-
I asked whether there should be certain areas that we should exclude mobile homes from being built. And I was being told I was elitist.
Well, we've seen your house, so, you know. We're all moving in next week. No, I'm just kidding.
I agree with you though, John.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree either, so.
That should stay in there, you're saying?
I don't know. So the thing is like with manufactured homes, I mean, like a double wide, I mean, is it technically permanent? I mean, how do you define, should it be a permanent structure? I mean, is there a way around it somehow? I don't know.
Yeah, if it had some sort of permanent foundation.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, even if it's on a slab, it's still a permanent home as long, I mean, nobody's really putting manufactured homes on the lake so much. But I've seen them on other lakes and it really drives the value of the whole neighborhood down. So,
Didn't we approve one up close to the city? That woman,
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't actually in the RLD, it was immediately adjacent to it.
Jason to it, okay.
but that was that on the, like the north end of the lake where the trailer park is, or where,
No.
where was that?
No, it was on the west side, but it was one of these like private drives. I forget the name of it.
Island Drive or one of those.
Yeah,
Okay. So it wasn't in the RLD though, technically.
not technically.
Well, maybe we, you know, if there's a way around it where we say it should be a, I don't know, permanent. I mean, that's the only way I could see it going around it, but I don't know how that works.
I mean, this is a very sensitive issue for a lot of people. You know, there's definitely a contingent of folks in Canandaigua who feel like the lake has changed and become out of reach for many people. And, you know, I get that. I understand their point of view. Personally, my point of view is that the lake is, you know, our unique and defining characteristic, and it drives so much of our local economy. And I want it to look as good as it possibly can and have as clean of water as it possibly can. And, you know, a mobile home park on the lake probably doesn't fit in with that, but
Well, it would change the characteristic of the neighborhood,
yeah.
right?
Minds can differ on that one, but I see both sides.
Yeah.
I could see somebody who has a small cottage who wants to replace the cottage because it's outdated.
Yeah.
Putting in something like this to replace that.
So maybe we look into the difference between, I mean, modulars are
Right.
like homes. I mean, a modular home is a different, you know, those are built just like a construction, you know, house, and that's built from the ground up. I mean, they do it in pieces is all. So maybe we redefine it or something. I don't know.
Well, we'll have more conversation on that. We don't have to beat it to death tonight.
All right, good.
Move on.
And then what about the pools?
Pools.
This is the one that you guys had kind of made the suggestion with. It's been a while since I looked at this one, though.
Spas
John, do you remember what this was about?
Weren't
just,
spas taken out of the definition?
I think this one had to do with building
Yeah, hot tubs.
pools on the lakeside of a house.
That's correct.
Oh, and it was,
But it deleted the hot tubs as in being a swimming pool, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, and the old, that was the old, they were linked together in that. And as it turns out, people, at least as advertised, are promoting hot tubs that you can't see.
Oh,
You
they
know,
sink
they're,
down.
they're behind, they're either very low to the ground, or they have, plants or something around them.
Right.
And that, that's quite a bit different than a swimming pool.
so as a point of clarity on this, we did not make the distinction between a spa and a swimming pool, or a hot tub and a swimming pool. We drew further distinction between in-ground swimming pools and above-ground swimming pools.
Okay.
So even if it was an in-ground swimming pool, it would be considered similar to an in-ground spa, allowed in the side and rear yard. Obviously, still needs planning board approval and all that good stuff. If it's above ground, it's only allowed essentially outside or not adjoining Canandaigua Lake, essentially. So the opposite side of County Road 16 or whatever street might be there.
Yeah, and the point with our history, we've redefined the area of a swimming pool. There used to be pretty tight limits, and since I've been on the board, I find that's evolved. And it looks like the next evolution possibly will be these spas. And that's just the way it sort of hits me. People who are installing them make a pretty good case. And then they throw in the environmental, component, which, hopefully is true.
I believe we also eliminated the maximum size,
Yep.
which now is 20 by 40. And I
Right.
think
Right.
that we eliminated that.
We did. Because you
We
had to have
eliminated that.
lifeguards or something.
So let me ask a question. I may be in the minority on this one, but there's always personal preference for how people want the lake to look. I like a little bit more of a natural shoreline. It's just my own personal preference. But has there been any discussion about putting in-ground pools, and maybe a small spa is not as big of an issue, but when you start to get larger in-ground pools between the lake shore and the house, what all that excavating would do, or to the shoreline, does it destabilize it? There been any discussion about that?
I believe that the current ordinance, and Eric, you probably know this better than I do, but you can't build within 25 foot of the shoreline
That's correct.
without a variance.
Yeah.
I think this wouldn't change anything for that. So,
That's right. Our pool
in the side
did not
yard,
change that.
Well,
I remember
because in the past, right, there was no permitted pool. So now they can come up to 25 feet from the shore.
As long as they meet all of the setback requirements.
Yeah. That just seems a little tight to me, but.
Are there any other conditions on that though? I mean, like so the swimming pool can go in, but do you have to have do we have just standard code conditions, or do we have our own set of higher standards?
I think it's more the way it's drafted. It's kind of done by right. We originally had a discussion about how much screening might be allowed, and various other things that might come into play. But if that was the direction that the ordinance committee wanted to go, it seemed more appropriate that be handled by the zoning board, who can, actually review these different things.
Right.
it's more difficult to put that type of stuff and codify it. So we went the other direction that, we're evaluating, okay, does it matter? Will it come into play anyways? If they're doing an in-ground swimming pool, they're going to get planning board approval. If they're in the RLD, if they're adjoining the lake, they'll need to comply with the shoreline development guidelines. So some of that stuff will be addressed.
Okay.
Is there anything else on this one?
I have a question, just as we go forth here. Does the town of Canandaigua control even half of the total perimeter of Canandaigua Lake?
I
Between
don't think so.
Bristol and the city and
East Lake.
Gorham?
I'd guess
Town
no.
of Naples and Italy.
Middle
Right.
Cheshire.
Just curious if anyone's ever looked at it from that standpoint.
It's like about a third, maybe.
This is like where the town border is on the west side.
Hmm.
We can picture it.
Then you cut the city off, right?
Yep. And then we only have a little sliver on the northeast end.
Right.
Definitely not half.
No.
Okay.
About a third.
So, anyways,
Just a thought.
So the thought, Dave, is so many other people are messing up the lake anyways. We're not going to change it.
Hey, look,
Yeah.
I wish they'd just end the pesticides and the fertilizer use at
Yeah.
certain parts of the town of Canandaigua. That would be my hope, but
So once you get
I just
out of
thought I'd ask
Canandaigua,
that. I just
everything
happened to
looks
think
murky.
about that. It's like, I'm not saying it's hopeless, but it's like,
Ah,
Yep.
good point, though, right?
okay.
Yep.
The NRI. I'm not going to go over this. The planning document, essentially, the NRI was originally done in 2011. At that time, it included wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes, maybe streams. The NRI in its updated form has more resources that it reviews, covers. It's kind of very similar to the open space plan that was done in 2018. It also provides some like development considerations for the boards to use in their review. It's a reference document essentially for you guys, for the planning board, for the ECB, when you're looking at applications. It is up here for you to review. It's too long to go over right now. And then they have the site assessment project review guide. You guys have any questions about this one?
Nope.
And the other nice thing is that there's a number of layers associated with this in the open space plan, GIS layers. They're going to provide that to the county and Sherry Norton, and then they'll be made available on Encore. So it should be easier to include it in any review. Comp plan update. So, town's been working on the comprehensive plan for almost 2 years. The COVID-19 epidemic kind of put it at a pause in between March and August. We reconvened at the beginning of August to kind of continue our work, and we've got 11 draft goals, a number of action steps associated with each of them. The next step is to format it into like an actual draft, circulate it, make sure we have all the action steps that are appropriate, do all the editing and everything like that. But that is kind of where we're at right now with a comp plan update. If anybody wants to see what we have right now, please reach out to me if you want to see like the draft vision statement, the goals, all that good stuff. Let me know. Does anybody have any questions on the comp plan update?
Nope.
Great. So what do we have for next month? The Brovitz homeowners on Menteith Drive, you guys have seen that application countless times.
Mhm.
They actually have a home now. They got that done. That's nice. When they got approval for the home, it didn't include any changes to the garage. They are now proposing to change the garage. They are staying in conformance generally with the previously granted variances, except that they also want to go to 22 feet high, and 16 is the maximum permitted. So they'll be seeking height. That's it.
Sounds like fun.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eric. It is 7:09, and I make a motion that we adjourn.
Emotion.
All right.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay,
No.
we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.